Greetings. My telephone number is 516-879-8503. That is 516-879-8503. My first name is spelled B as in Boulevard, A as in Apple, B as in Boulevard, A as in Apple, T as in teacher, U as in university, N as in Nancy, D as in David, E as in Edward. My last name is spelled O as in occasion, L as in Larry, A as in Apple, B as in Boulevard, O as in occasion, P as in Peter, O as in occasion. And my birthday is July 8, 1981. And this is the third part of a multi-series videos I'm sending you, and my phone is cutting off. My phone has some malfunction, so I can't really record for long periods right now. For some reason, the recording is breaking up. So I'm facing a humanitarian emergency. I'm a transgender. I'm a gender non-binary to transgender spectrum homeless Nigerian immigrant here in America. My mother was killed by daughters Bolani and Flora, who hold U.S. citizenship, and they used that to abuse my mother and killed her they were open to getting inheritance money because me and my mother had reported the police to court for maltreating us and throwing us out. And as a matter of fact, the black American guy that was trying to help us with a court case, Eric Garner, the police immediately went and choked him dead. In 2014, as soon as I informed Eric Garner, and they killed Eric Garner on Victor Boulevard and Bay Street, the exact same spot where I last spoke to Eric Garner. And they told me I was going to help, and I was recording Eric Garner. Because at that time, people were like maltreating me. They promised to help me with my court papers, and they wouldn't help me. So I was fed up. So at that time, I was recording everybody. So I was recording Eric Garner. Because they were just, the police were sending people to just maltreat me. So I was recording him, and the U.S. Immigration and the FBI, they were listening in because I used to have an immigration problem. In 2000, my mother had a green card, and she brought me from Nigeria because I was being abused as a child in Nigeria, and the police in Nigeria wouldn't help us because they said, child abuse is customary in Nigeria. My mother took me to the police station, and they told me, me and my mother, that the best thing is for me to get out of Nigeria because it's customary. So the law doesn't really frown at it. So my mother brought me to America, but I was arrested at JFK. They said there was something wrong with my visa, and my mother was very angry. She was like, "This is kidnap. You don't snatch a child, from her, even though she's a U.S. permanent resident." I was under 21. Under U.S. immigration law, I was considered a child, So she said, so my mother was like, under international law, this is kidnap. Because, even the court here ruled for a British kid this year in Brooklyn Federal Court that you can't separate a child from the parent, and the child has the right to choose whatever parent they can live with. So for a British kid, they ruled different and allowed him to stay here with his parent. But for me in 2000, they arrested me and put me in prison. Said I wasn't welcome in America. So my mother went to the Nigerian embassy in 2000, and the Nigerian embassy said they don't give a damn, that America can do whatever they like to do, that they can't have no right to intervene with American laws. And my mother said, this is kidnap, and the Nigerian embassy wouldn't help us. So I was stuck in prison, and she told her daughters, she had daughters that was born here in America, she told them to come be visiting me, and they refused to visit me. I would call the daughter on the phone from prison, and the daughter wouldn't answer, Palale. And she told me later that she could hear me when I called, but she didn't just want to answer the phone because she didn't know what to do. But my mother kept coming to the prison, and she was telling me everything was going to be okay. But decided to release me from prison because America was having an explosion in immigrants coming in. So the prison was all filled up. They didn't even want to release me. They reluctantly released me. Because I was a nobody. I was just an African nobody to them. They put me in handcuffs, but rendered me in the JFK, and because I looked so young, and people were wondering, what did this child do? They put me, took me to the prison. They didn't want to release me, but they had an explosion in immigrants coming in. So they told me to get out of the prison late at night. I had to call my mother. So like everybody was shocked. It was like, how come they never informed? I was like, they were having an emergency. The prison was filled up, and they turned me loose in the middle of the night. That's about I had to leave. I didn't really know my way around. It was cold. I wasn't dressed, so I came out of the cold and I dreamed like an animal, like an African monkey. And that was a prelude. That was a prenupsis, a prelude to what I was going to experience later. That my lawyer stopped showing up in court after I got money from my mother, thousands of dollars. And my mother was working low wage job, and our body started stiffening. Our blood pressure was rising higher and higher because the judge told my mother that if you don't get a new lawyer, that the case would be denied and I'll be sent back to Nigeria because the lawyer wasn't showing up anymore. So the court was like, just go get a new lawyer. So my mother was trying to pay for a new lawyer for me in 2001. So my mother's body started stiffening. She was working extra hard. So I called the hospital, the ambulance, to take her to the hospital. So when she got to the hospital, she told them my body's stiffening, and the hospital was like, your body's stiffening, and they went and locked her up in the psych ward. They used to maltreat foreigners like that, lock you up in the psych ward, every little thing, lock you up in the psych ward. They used to do that to Black Americans also. So my mother reached out to her daughters who were born here to come free her, and our daughters decided to play my mother, treated my mother like she was crazy also, because our daughters were trying to, because my mother had a green card, and if they could claim she was crazy, she could become the caretaker and get money, in control of the money, disability checks. So they were encouraging my mother to file for disability. But my mother said no. She wasn't crazy and she wasn't going to lie because she still wants to become a U.S. citizen, and to be lying that she's crazy. They told my mother to just play along. She just play along like she was crazy and she could get the disability checks, no problem. And they'll be in charge of the money. The ones were into money. They were greedy, Bolani and Flora. They were greedy for money. So they took my mother to Pennsylvania. So my mother fled from Pennsylvania, came back to New York in 2001. And, but then the immigration had ordered me deported. Because they were mass deporting immigrants. I was so unlucky. As soon as I came to America, they blew up the World Trade Center, so there was mass deportation going on. So the court was like, the judge was like, I'm fed up. I gave you and your mother a chance to get a new lawyer, and you can't get a lawyer. I said, my mother's sick in the hospital. And the judge was like, I'm denying your case. She was like, she's fed up, and there was a mass deportation of immigrants going on. So I was one of those that was ordered mass deported in 2001 when my mother was stuck in the hospital, and her daughter's boy in America wouldn't help me. As a matter of fact, the daughter Flora was calling everybody, and it was like she was making fun of me. I was going to get deported, So I suffered from the 9/11 because this country has something. When an immigrant does something wrong, they take it out on other immigrants, the law enforcement. So I suffered for 9/11. Even though an American lawyer, DiPietro, that's his name, DiPietro stole my money and stopped showing up in court after 9/11. Or close to 9/11, stopped showing up in court. And I was trying to explain to the judge ordered me deported. I was one of the first victims, first casualty. When an immigrant does something wrong, immigrants of color like me are targeted. So I was among the batch of mass deportation that were carried out under Judge Bush. I was, but I stayed in the country with my mother, and I was appealing. No lawyer would take my case. They told me I was done for good. I was good to go. But, I was filing appeal papers with the Board of Immigration, so that kept me in the country, because I knew my rights, and I was filing appeal, and the doors wouldn't help me with money, so you can go through my immigration record. I was filing my case and informing the Board of Immigration Appeals that my mother, had a health issue, and my lawyer abandoned me, so it's an unfair trial, so I was going through that by myself. So fast forward to 2015, my mother had a series of heart attacks. In 2003, she had a first heart attack. They took her to the hospital, and she declined surgery. because she was like, the way America treated me and her, put him in prison. She doesn't want to do her surgery in an American hospital. She'd rather go to Israel, but she doesn't want to be sabotaged because she knew that the Nigerian government wouldn't fight for her. She was taking precaution. So she told the first hospital that took her to in 2003 when she had a heart attack. She told her she doesn't want to have surgery, that she's going to pray about it, and she's, yeah, and so the hospital released her, said she was declining surgery in 2003 due to religious belief, and she got miraculously healed. But in 2015, by then the police had removed us from her home, and she was living with her daughters in Pennsylvania, and one of her daughters was like poisoning my mother with like car fluid, because me and my mother, I reported to the court that the police rendered us homeless, and the stress is taking a toll on my mother's health. So our daughters got a cue from that if they could just kill her already, they can make money as inheritance money. So my mother felt her daughter Bolanle was like poisoning her, because anytime she was living in that Bolanle's house, her health would deteriorate. But anytime she comes to New York, after a couple of days, she'll get better. But she didn't know what kind of poison it was until this year. It said a black American killed his own son with car fluid. And they said, and they said the car fluid is hard to detect in the body unless you do an autopsy, because it goes into your body and does the job and disappears from your body. Or they have to do like your hair analysis or your deep tissue analysis or something immediately after you die. It's very hard to detect. So they said a black American male in Atlanta was tired of paying child support to the mother of the child. When the child came visiting him, he poisoned the child with car fluid. They call it car antifreeze. And they said the child was vomiting, the child's heart was tightening up, the exact same symptoms my mother was complaining of. That anytime she goes to that Bolanle's house, she'll start having that symptoms. In Pennsylvania. So when she started having that symptoms again, my mother decided to, that this is it, enough is enough. She got on the bus to come to New York, and she was hoping the hospital here would pick up, the symptoms and find out what the poison was. So, and she was making it on the bus from Pennsylvania to New York, midway, she said her body was tightening up. She couldn't breathe. So she told the bus driver she's about to have a heart attack. And the bus pulled on the side of the road and was going to call the ambulance. But my mother told the bus to keep driving to New York because our daughters were born here in America. And they used to work with the hospital system. So they have friends all over America. So she wanted to be far away from them as possible. So they and their friends wouldn't compromise her health, a diagnosis. So she thought she would be safer in New York, and she could just, hide in New York, in a New York hospital, and they could run all the diagnostics on her and find out what poison that Bolanle was using to poison her. So my mother was interested in knowing. She felt that Bolanle was using some poison, but she didn't know what poison it was. And I didn't know what poison it was. As soon as she eats in Bolanle's house, her heart will start stiffening, like she's about to have a heart attack. She have trouble breathing. Then when she comes to New York, after a couple of days, the symptoms will just disappear. And surely a black American male poisoned his own child with that kind of poison this year, and they said the child had the same symptoms. And it was this year that it finally, the bell rung in my head, that maybe this Bolanle was poisoning my mother with car antifreeze. So when my mother got to the hospital in New York in 2015, they were running diagnostics on her and stuff, but they said that poison is very hard to detect. You have to die first, and they have to take your tissue sample because that car fluid would evaporate from your body as soon, but you do some damage in your tissue. I'm not a medical scientist, so I'm just through a layman's explanation. That's what I'm offering. So I may not be accurate in my explanation of how that poison works. I'm not interested in studying poison or anything like that. So I may be wrong in my explanation of how the poison works. But my mother wanted to go to New York, and she was hoping they would detect the poison, and she could get that Bolanle arrested. And she didn't tell me. My mother didn't tell me what hospital she was in. She didn't tell that Bolanle what hospital she was in. My mother wanted to keep the location of the hospital secret, and she wanted the hospital to do their job, and and treat her, and tell her what was going on with her blood and her organ, if she was being poisoned or not. My mother said all of a sudden that Bolanle and Flora showed up in the hospital, all the way from Pennsylvania, and my mother was shocked. Like, why would this daughters know what hospital she's in? So my mother said that Bolanle was into drugs, and she was quite a kind of popular. She had a lot of friends all over America. So and she believed like people, she was moving with a bad gang. So it said in America, some of the criminal types, they get arrested by the police a lot, and they form friendship with the police because the police always use them to lure other criminals to be arrested. So they hire them as confidential agents, so to help trap people. So then the police always do them a favor. So I believe they may have reached out to the police to help them locate where my mother was, in violation of my mother's right. Because in America, there's a law called HIPAA, and nobody's supposed to disclose your location in the hospital to anybody else. You have a right to be treated in privacy. So my mother was shocked that the doors showed up, Bolani and Flora, at the hospital, and they were maltreating my mother, trying to provoke her to have a heart attack. And they were telling the doctor to lock her up in the psych ward. They were just doing everything possible to agitate my mother so her blood pressure would rise higher and so she could die. Because I had already informed the court that when the police came to remove my mother from her home in 2010, my mother's blood pressure was escalating and she was having symptoms of a heart attack. And my mother also informed the court that that she wanted to travel to Israel in 2010 to get her heart surgery done, but the police confiscated her passport by locking up her home, and the money she has on her, she's been spending it on hotels and to handle emergencies while homeless. So our doors were trying to capitalize on that and make it look like the stress of homelessness got my mother killed. You know, so they came to the hospital in New York and they wanted to increase the stress on my mother. Told the hospital to lock my mother up in the psych ward, even though my mother passed the mental health test. But the hospital decided to discriminate against my mother because she had a Nigerian accent. She was born in Nigeria. The daughters were born here. So they decided to side with the daughters and just lock my mother up in the psych ward. And my mother was telling me that if they decide to lock her up in the psych ward, she's not going to go down easy, because she was seeing that the hospital were taking steps. Even though she passed the mental health test, they were telling the nurses to keep spying on her and to be talking condescending to her, and just make her look like she was crazy. So my mother was telling me over the phone, and the FBI was listening in, because I had an immigration case, in 2000. But they said once you have a problem with the system, the FBI has the permission to spy on you forever. You know, so because after 9/11 happened, I was one of the casualties of the 9/11. The law enforcement was practicing revenge on foreigners. So one of the things they did, if you're a foreigner that ever had a problem with their law, like immigration problem, they put you on phone tap. And they ordered us, all of us, mass deported. So I was ordered mass deported after 9/11. My lawyer stopped showing up in court, but I fought back. I was just like 20 years old. I never had a criminal. I never had an encounter with a criminal court, but I was filing my court papers, appeals by myself. I was just left to rot. The immigration lawyers in America wouldn't help me. I appealed to the free lawyers, and they told me, no, we're not taking your case. So I decided to file my own appeal. So while the appeal normally takes years, so that bought me time to stay in America. I didn't have papers, and I would go to college. I would get good grades, but the college would treat me like a terrorist because I didn't have papers, and they would kick me out. Even though I would get A and A and A. And my mother's daughters, one of the daughters, Flora, had money because my mother won a lawsuit for her in the 1980s because there was poisoning of lead poisoning in the home, and the landlord was sued, and my mother won money for the daughter. So the daughter was just spending the money to travel abroad, to go on vacation, to travel to an expensive amusement park called Disney World. While I was homeless on the street with my bags and belongings, the daughter Flora was just spending money traveling abroad, going on vacation, and I was out on the street, and my mother would tell the daughter to help me with money, and the daughter didn't care. I would call the daughter, and the daughter would tell me no. And still we wanted to kill my mother to get more money because the lawsuit money was running out and they needed more money to maintain the expensive lifestyle. And the other daughter, Bolanle, was into drugs. So in 2015, my mother ended up in the hospital here in New York because the daughter in Bolanle was poisoning her. My mother believed she was being poisoned by the daughter in Pennsylvania because my mother's health would deteriorate. And they said the car fluid antifreeze poison would do that to you. It will make you look like you're crazy. When they put that drug in your body, in your food, you start having symptoms of heart attack. Your blood pressure will rise higher, and if they test the diagnosis wouldn't show in your body. that stuff would evaporate from your body as soon as it gets in. They said that that's the number one poison for killers. You know, they've done so many cases in America based on that car antifreeze poisoning. So you have to die first, and they have to remove your tissue and do a tissue analysis. So but my mother escaped. And while she was in the hospital for 7 days, she was starting to get better. I would call her up and she would talk to me on the phone. But she said her daughters, suspiciously showed up in the hospital, even though she didn't tell them what hospital she was in. And they were telling the hospital to lock her up in the psych ward. They just wanted my mother to die. So they were doing everything to aggravate my mother. They were using their influence as, because they were very proficient in American English. So and so they felt like they had that over my mother, and they could just feign mental illness on my mother. Because my mother also had a history of being misdiagnosed with psychiatric issue. Because in 2001, my mother was working extra hard to get me a new lawyer, and she was going to school full-time. So she wouldn't sleep. She was just working full-time and going to school full-time. So her body started stiffening up in 2001. So I called the ambulance to take her to the hospital. And when we got to the hospital, she told the hospital that her body was stiffening up and I had an immigration case. She was worried about my case. And, and a lot of this stuff got her to become, to lose sleep at night. And the doctor was like, I went and locked her up in the psych ward, even though she was just having pre-stroke symptoms. And they denied her care and locked her up in the psych ward and diagnosed her as mentally ill, even though my mother wasn't mentally ill. So my mother called her daughters to come pick her up in the hospital. And her daughters decided to play my mother. I went along with the wrong diagnosis and took my mother out of New York. And they wanted to get my mother they said they were going to be collecting disability checks for my mother, and they won't be in charge of her. They were just trying to make money off of her, because if you claim somebody is mentally ill, the disability check will be coming to you. You're getting money, so they were trying to get my mother to apply for disability. My mother said she wasn't crazy and she wasn't about to start lying to get benefit, because the immigration finds out she's lying to get disability checks and she's not mentally ill. They would deport her. This was after 9/11, so every immigrant was scared. All my mother had was a green card. Even they said her daughter told her to be applying for military benefit. They took her to one of her daughters was married to a U.S. military guy, Yinde. So the daughter was stationed in Savannah, Georgia. So my mother was saying that the daughter was telling her to apply for military benefit, that they wouldn't know the difference because everybody in the barracks is considered like a military person. So my mother said that was what got her to flee, that the daughter may be trying to get her deported, because if you're a green card holder and you're collecting military benefits, that's a ground for deportation. So my mother fled and applied for U.S. citizenship after that. And she said she broke contact with her daughters after that. So me and her was in New York until the police came in 2010. So for 9 years, we were in New York together until the police came, invaded our home, forced the door open, and threw us out. And my mother almost had a heart attack. So she went to court immediately that the police invaded our home. The court wouldn't help her. I went to court also. And I recorded a Black American male. I told him everything. And I was recording him because back then I was being abused everywhere. The police was telling people to maltreat me, not help me with my court case. So lawyers would promise to help me and they would decline. Even a Black American male, he had just finished Harvard University, Harvard Law School. And I told him about my case. He told me, you have a good case, I'm going to help you. And he helped me file the court, and he helped me type the complaint, send it to me by email, and he broke contact with me. And anytime I called him on the phone, he wouldn't answer my phone. So the police was getting, that Black American name his name is Saver Cunningham. They need to ask him, why did he break ties with me? After he helped me type the court papers, then he went and started working for the U.S. federal justice system. And I've been calling him, because at that time, my mother was saying her daughters were poisoning her, because she ended up living with her daughters. I was trying to get this Black American lawyer to help me, because he helped me start my case in court and disappeared. So I was trying to see if he could help me, if they could apply for an emergency provision so that they could quickly house my mother and me in a temporary place. But this Black American wouldn't talk to me. He just broke contact with me. So that there's a lot of people like that that will break contact with me. Only Eric Garner. He said, I'm going to help you. He said, don't worry. He said, forget about those lawyers that maltreated you. You got me now. I'm going to help you. I'm going to go to court with you. I was standing on Victory Boulevard at Bay Street, on Staten Island. Weeks later, the police went and got Eric Garner and choked them. I was recording Eric Garner, and the FBI was tapping into my recordings, and everything, because, that was how they were treating foreigners. They were just, tapping into your recordings and stuff, put you on surveillance forever. So I was calling the Eric Garner lawyer as soon as he was killed, and the Eric Garner lawyer would hang up the phone on me. I was trying to, give him the evidence I had. And soon after that, I heard they paid money to the Eric Garner family, and they shot me out in the cold. And the criminal charges against the Eric Garner killer, the courts dismissed it, to say lack of evidence. Even though I had evidence. Then the Nigerian church my mother used to go to, the synagogue church in Nigeria in 2014, a Russian military plane said they saw the American plane leave a German air base or somewhere in Europe and went into Nigeria. And and they didn't understand why an American bomber plane was going to Nigeria, because Nigeria wasn't fighting with America in 2014. So the Russians were monitoring the American military, the air base in Europe, because they were afraid that America may try to bomb them also. So when they saw that plane leave the German air base, they were afraid that plane was headed for Russia. So they were following that plane. They said they were recording that plane go to Nigeria. So they were kind of confused, like, why is a bomber plane go? They said that plane is used by the American military to bomb stuff. So why does that plane go to Nigeria? So they didn't understand why. So my mother and I used to go to a church in Nigeria called the Synagogue Church. And they said all of a sudden there was many white South Africans worshiping in that church. So I used to send, I used to send testimonies to that church. I used to tell them, oh, their prayers is working, thank God. I guess they were just trying to attack my Christian faith. So they sent an American plane to Nigeria to bomb that church. And the Nigerian Pastor Joshua, said his surveillance picked up a plane hovering over his building, hovering over the top of his building, and all of a sudden the building came crashing down and many Africans got killed. And he put the video on YouTube, but it's now dead, and YouTube removed all the videos. Said, it's an accused child molester, and they don't want him on YouTube. So the cover up, like an attempted cover up. And since then, YouTube also gives me problems. They block me from posting videos, and the Google also blocks me from uploading video to my Google Drive. Anytime I paid the monthly subscription, the Google store would decline payment. Say my card, there was something wrong with my card. So I go to another store, buy another prepaid card, and so they were making me lose money, like that. So the social media outfit, the social media outfits also joining in to compromise my justice. So my friend Eric Garner was choked dead in 2014. Then I rented a place before they killed Eric Garner. I rented a place close to where they killed Eric Garner. I was storing evidence against the NYPD there. All of a sudden, that place got experienced fire arson, and the burns that place down also. And I was there as the house was burning down. People were screaming that why is the fire department just watching the house burn down? I had a lot of evidence against the NYPD in that house. I was just burning. And the fire department wouldn't extinguish that fire. So I was recording on my phone, and people were just like saying there's something suspicious. Even the Staten Island Advance said that house, 219 Canal Street, they felt the landlord, who was Nigerian, did an insurance fraud, and stuff, and they wanted that guy jailed, because they said he registered that house as a shipping company. But it wasn't a shipping company. People used to see, used to like do dance clubs on weekends, and because they said that the music equipment normally use a lot of electricity and could blow up, So the Standard Advance did a report that they had information that the landlord must have committed insurance fraud, and the fire that house has a lot of violations. I encouraged the fire department to investigate him. They refused, and I was housing my important evidence in that house against the NYPD. So in March 19, 2014, that house got burned down, I was on the street with my belongings, and Erigana got killed a few weeks later after that. This was after I talked with Erigana. I was just expressing all kinds of hostility, where my house got burnt down, and then weeks later Erigana got choked dead. And and was the only person that was promising to help me. The black American lawyer that finished Harvard Law School that promised to help me, he started the case, told me to submit it in court. I was going to come take over the case. And he broke contact with me, and he went and started working for the feds. He's now a lawyer with the feds. And refused to talk to me. People just break contact with me. Lawyers, we just break contact with me. So this is now, so by 2015, my mother's daughter was also being poisoned by a daughter. My mother's daughter was poisoning my mother, especially Bolanle. So my mother fled to New York, hoping they would run diagnostics on her. She was having a heart attack, and discovered the poison. But the daughters came to New York and told the hospital to lock my mother up in the psych ward. And the hospital obliged. And my mother was telling me over the phone that if they try to lock her up in the psych ward, she's not going to go down easy, that she's going to fight for freedom, or enough is just enough. And that's what they did. They decided to lock my mother up in the psych ward, and they told me she died as they were trying to put her in the psych ward. And as soon as she died, our daughters took all her property, because the U.S. immigration issued me 2 green cards in 2008, because, I was able to appeal my case, and eventually I was granted a green card. I did everything mostly by myself. I love the American lawyers wouldn't help me. So I love the case. I did it by myself, really. I filed the appeal by myself, so I eventually got green card in 2008. But the U.S. immigration mistakenly gave me 2 green cards instead of 1. So my mother held on to one, I held on to 1. So after my mother's daughters killed my mother in 2015, they stole that green card from my mother, stole all my mother's properties, even the property, because I kept a lot of my property in my mother's storage, because we're both homeless, so she had a storage unit where you can store your stuff, called a keeper self-storage on Staten Island. So I just went and got all that property and took it to Pennsylvania with them. So I had, where my house got burned down, my passport was stolen and stuff. And in 2019, the American police here in New York put me in a chokehold and took me to the psych ward also. A guy came, Trump was president then, and he was doing immigration raid in New York. So I had my green card in my bag like this, because I didn't want to put it in my pocket, because people would put their hand in my pocket and steal my cell phones, steal my property. So I thought my green card was safer in my bag, so I hid it in the big bag I was carrying, So the police came, and a guy in 2019 came and was touching me in a sexual manner as Trump was doing immigration raid in New York, and the police camera was recorded. So they saw the bag I put my green card in. I put the bag underneath a building that has roof, because it was raining, and I had a umbrella on top of my head, and I was just sitting on the sidewalk, because when people see me like that, they'll help me with money, So the police was like monitoring me. They saw people were helping me with money, So it was a rainy day. I had an umbrella on top of my head. So I hid my property underneath a roof. A building had there was an abandoned building that had a roof in the front of the building. So I put my bags in front of the building. It was an abandoned building, But then I sat in a chair. I had the umbrella on top of my head. I sat, close to a store, and people walking by would come and help me with money. I was just shaking my cup, So a guy came and was rubbing my body, his hand on my body in a sexual way. So I told him to stop it. So the police camera was recorded. So the guy left. Then the police came in the rain and knocked me down. Said somebody called them. Said I was fighting with the guy. I said, yeah, the guy was touching me in a sexual manner, forcible touching me. He always does that to me. And I said the police camera picked them up. I said, could you please help me file a police report and arrest them? And they knocked me to the ground while it was raining and put their nail on my neck. And they were choking me dead, and people showed up. They weren't expecting people to show up, and people were screaming, and they were, they put the camera to record. I told them to get off of me, and they went and took me to the psych ward, left my green card and all my property on the sidewalk. And I was telling the police, please, please don't steal my property. And I was screaming. If you watch that video, of me screaming. I said, you're trying to steal my property. Don't steal my property. You put me in handcuffs. I said, please take my property to your prison. And they promised to take it to a prison. My green card was in my bag. I had a lot of belongings like this. And they left it on the sidewalk and locked me up in the psychiatric hospital. And they were feigning mental illness on me because they saw that was the way my mother's daughters killed my mother. And they said people came and stole, the sanitation department came and took all my property and threw it in the trash bag. They were just trying to, abuse me to death. So my green card was gone. My mother's daughter stole the other green card. And I had an extra passport because I was a child when my mother brought me here. So the Nigerian passport allows you to put your child in your passport. So I had my own separate passport, but also I had my name is under my mother's passport. So my mother's daughters stole that passport, stole my extra green card. So while I was in psychiatric hospital, I was calling to the Nigerian embassy, and they promised to help me. Said my mother's daughters killed her, and my friend Eric Garner also, the American police killed them before he could help me. I said they love lawyers, will promise to help me, and all of a sudden they break contact with me. I believe the New York police is telling all this lawyer not to help me. They wanted me to suffer homelessness on the street. Even a black American lawyer, his name is Zaber Kania. He sent me, and he told me I just finished Harvard Law School. I said my case is good. It was going on. He helped me as soon as he got his law license, but he told me to go submit the papers he had to type. I said as soon as he gets his law license, because after you finish law school, you have to apply for a law license. I said after he gets his law license, he's going to come and help me. And after I got his law license, he started working for the federal police. They call them the federal prosecutors. And I before they killed my mother, I was reaching out to him because my mother was saying that Doris were about to kill her in Pennsylvania. So I was telling this black American lawyer, if he could help me, and he wouldn't answer my phone call. If he had helped me, because they could have gone to court and announced to the court there's an emergency. They need to put my mother and me in a hotel room right away because there was a court case that preceded me and my mother's case in the 1990s. They said when the police remove you from your home, the city has to put you in a hotel room permanently, so you don't have to be on the street. So that section of the law, I was trying to get this black American lawyer to help me and my mother, and he wouldn't answer my phone call or nothing. So his inaction got my mother killed. So you should be charged with felony murder. Felony murder is when through your negligence, another person gets killed. So but they are federal agents and everything. They're trying to mess up my case because they know a lot of Americans will go to prison, and they don't want Americans to go to prison for me as a Nigerian. So it's discrimination galore. So the lawyers wouldn't help me. I'm stuck on the street. My mother's daughters killed her. They're holding on to my green card. My mother's daughters are Bolanle, Florida. They're holding on to my green card. I don't have money to apply for a new green card because the other green card I had on me, when the police choked me, they left all my property on the sidewalk, and the sanitation took it to the dump. They sent it to the dump in Pennsylvania. I was like, why Pennsylvania? Why, your New York sanitation system, they said that's where the dump yard is. They said Pennsylvania, that's where we put all your stuff. I said, could you help me trace it? Because I've heard about Americans that will lose their wedding ring and stuff, and you go into the dump yard to get it. And they wouldn't help me. The New York sanitation system wouldn't help me. They're all siding with the American government, because they know if they help me, a lot of Americans will go to prison. So New York is not safe for Africans to come to the World Cup here. My friend, a black American friend of mine, that was trying to help me. They choked him dead in Warsaw. So no lawyer in America would help me. So right now, black American gangs beat me up. My mother's daughters are part of a gang. And the Nigerian embassy wouldn't help me either. They promised me they were going to help me. And all of a sudden, they broke ties with me. I told them I needed a new passport also because my passport was stolen. That I'm stranded on the street, they wouldn't help me. So I'm afraid that, there might be people that wish me dead. Because my mother said her daughters were into insurance fraud. I don't know if they have insurance policy on me also. So I'm afraid that people that wish me dead so that they could claim the money for themselves. Because if you're killed in America, they would give the money to your any family member that shows up. So I've been trying to sue the U.S. immigration for, kidnapping me. Because when I came into the country with my mother in 2000, they put me in immigration prison, said there was something wrong with my visa. And a British kid this year the courts ruled that, when a child is under 21, you can't remove that child from America. The child can stay in America with a parent. They were trying to remove a British kid also, but the kid didn't want to go to England. So the court here in Brooklyn, the federal court here said the child can stay in America. Said, it's considered torture to remove a child from the parent. So when the police arrested me, the immigration police arrested me in 2000, saying I wasn't welcome in America, there was something wrong with my visa. My mother went to the Nigerian embassy and said I was put in prison, and the Nigerian embassy refused to help me, said it was a kidnap. Because under international law, you can't remove a child from a parent, just because the child doesn't have a immigration status. So they refused to comply with the law. Even I spoke with an immigration agent that was a lawyer also. He told me he doesn't understand why they put me in prison. That they also told the immigration agent that when a child arrives and the parents has a green card, they should give the child a special papers called humanitarian parole. So and the immigration agent said it looks like discrimination. But he was a lawyer, but he wanted a lot of money. At that time, my mother couldn't afford the services. He was an immigration agent that became a lawyer. So he told me they just, segregated me and mistreated me. But for me being an African, really. So they put me through so much abuse. The Nigerian government wouldn't help me either. And I'm afraid, they just want me to suffer and die because I'm also a transsexual. So I'm afraid they want me to die. So in case you die like that they can assign somebody else in your family to get the money. So please, I want you, Confederation of African Football, to help me to broadcast my matter. If you can help me financially, but don't bring the African players here to come to America where they're covering up the Nigerian church, Pastor Joshua Synagogue Church, that got bombed in 2014, and my building that got burned by fire in 2014. Even the local paper Standard Advance said there's something suspicious about that fire, and that there's something suspicious about the Nigerian that owns that house. And it said soon after that, the Nigerian went and did a big wedding while the fire was going on. My house was being burned. Somebody told me the landlord traveled to Nigeria and spent a lot of money to hosting a big wedding. They brought many people from America there. There was a lady that was in the house with me, and I asked her, why didn't I see you during the fire? She was like, she told me she was from the Caribbean. She told me she wasn't in America. She told me we were all in Nigeria celebrating a big wedding as the fire was going on in the US. So we're all doing a wedding, So I was like, how did y'all get all the money to travel? And that woman was working a low-wage job. I said, you're from the Caribbean, working a low-wage job in America. How do you get money? To travel to Nigeria to celebrate a big wedding. There was a big wedding they were doing in Nigeria as the fire was going on. In 2014, near where they killed our recorder, the landlord and the family was celebrating in Nigeria. They were dancing. So said it was one of the biggest weddings ever in Nigeria. They were spending money. Even the landlord wouldn't help me. Because, my passport was in that house. And my passport had my visa that came into that was given to me by the U.S. immigration. Even though I had a visa, the U.S. immigration still put me in prison. So at that time, I was planning to sue the U.S. immigration that I had a visa, but I had a green card. So I was reaching out to all the lawyers in America that have proof I was wrongfully put in prison, immigration prison, because I had a visa. I told them I had my passport with me. Soon after that, that Nigerian landlord was treating me bad, and all of a sudden there was a fire in the house, and I couldn't get that passport out of the house. And the fire department was watching that house burn down. People were surrounding me, and they were all screaming at the fire department, stop the fire. They wanted my passport to burn down. But God so good, the building wouldn't burn down. The building wouldn't burn down. The people were screaming, stop the fire, stop the fire. There was a police camera recording, and God was so good, the building wouldn't burn. They were waiting for the whole building to burn down, and the fire just was ready to die by itself. So the landlord locked up the whole house and I couldn't get none of my property out. Then, after that, it demolished the whole house. My Nigerian passport is gone with the visa, so I wouldn't have proof to sue the American government. They had a visa and my Nigerian passport, and you still put me in immigration prison. So they were just sabotaging me like crazy. And the regard I was going to help me with that case and other cases, they choked them dead. And a Black American lawyer that graduated from Harvard, Xavier Cunningham, he started working for the feds. He started that case for me in court in 2013. The case regarding how the police removed my mother from her home, and he broke ties with me. So I was explaining to Eric Garner. I said, a lot of the people that promised to help me would break contact with me, and I was recording them secretly. And he told me, "Don't worry, I'm going to be with you." I said, and he said something that was so suspicious. He said, "If something happens and I can't be with you, say I want you to go ahead, keep fighting by yourself." He said, "Keep fighting. It's very important. Don't stop fighting." He said, "Don't worry, whoever treats you bad." He said, "Keep fighting." And I was recording him. So it's very important. Listen to me, it's very important. Something may happen. I may not be able to go with you for whatever reason. So if anything happens, but he said he's going to be with me in the courts. He said, because he wants me and my mother to get justice. But say if any, peradventure, I decide not to involve him in my case anymore. That's what it meant. That if I decide not to involve him in my case anymore, so I should do it alone by myself. So he told me I had a very good case. And the way I choked him dead because he was encouraging me to keep. And the day they choked him dead, they said he was also suspicious. When the police surrounded him, they said there was a fight going on, and the police claimed they were responding to the fight. And instead of arresting people that were fighting with Eric Garner, they said they said they were selling cigarette. And the people were saying where Eric Garner stood and where the police stood, it was a long distance. They couldn't have spotted him selling cigarette from that long distance, So it was like they zoomed in on him, came close to him because they wanted to kill him. He was being alleged, and I recorded him saying he was, encouraging me to keep fighting for justice. He said I shouldn't mind. I was telling him about the lawyers that abandoned me. He said I shouldn't worry about the lawyers that abandoned me. Even his fellow Black American abandoned me. He said I shouldn't worry about that. So I should forget about it. I said keep fighting. So keep getting. So you have a good case. That's what he told me. Say if something happens to him, he said he's not able to go to court with me. I should, I said I should go alone to court. So right now, I'm being harassed every day. When I try to use the bathroom, the police will surround me in the bathroom and will tell me to get out. Stop banging on doors and get out. They treat me like an animal. Like they want to kill me in the bathroom. They tell people to treat me like an animal. And my mother's daughters also, they're making it like America versus foreigners. So they don't arrest my mother's daughters because they have U.S. passport. So please, CAF, don't bring Africans here. Please help me demand justice for my mother. And if you can help me financially, if you can Western Union me the money, all my ID is gone. So if you can Western Union me the money, I give you my first name, my last name, and send me the code. Borrow me the money. As humanitarian assistant, I'll pay you the money back. And if you can send my video to other people, to help me ask the American government, why are they protecting killers? My mother's daughters killed my mother. The police killed Eric Garner. Your FBI has all the information. And the Nigerian church was bombed. So please, if you can inform all the African players to email the American government. They shouldn't be scared. They may get denied visas or whatever. But people should be in solidarity. My mother likes football. It's called soccer here. It don't matter what name you call it. So my mother, I don't think she understands it, but she always likes to watch the soccer matches. I don't think she really understands it. And we would watch it together. So please, there's nobody standing up for her. The Nigerian embassy wouldn't stand up for her. So I hope the players will stand up for her. And as I'm single, I'm not married. I'm not trying to marry anybody. And also I don't have any children. I don't want to have kids. And also I'm not safe in any other country. My mother has family in England, but my mother reached out to her family in England. They didn't want to help her. So my mother told me if anything happens to her, I should keep reaching out to strangers. And also, my father has family in England also, but my father was abusive to me. So I'm not safe anywhere in the world. Except here in America, I'm relatively safer because America is a crime scene. I have all my evidence, you know, stationed here. A lot of it has been destroyed already. But so please, they may try to feign mental illness on me also, because one of my mother's daughters used to watch a soap opera. I don't know. I don't remember the name of the soap opera. I think it was Days of Our Life, and in that soap opera, I think it was about an old man who fell sick and forgot who he was. He was having dementia. I don't really remember. She used to like that show. I really don't. I never really liked it, but so I'm afraid they may try to claim I'm mentally ill also, and they want to put me in custody and help me fight for my case. So please, that would be a scam. I was also misdiagnosed with mental illness when my mother brought me to America in 2000. So my mother took me, because we lost our home also in 2000 soon after that. So my mother took me to her daughters in Pennsylvania. So I was trying to come back to my mother to New York for my court case, immigration court case. And one of the daughters hit me with a car, and the other daughter called 911 on me, and they went and put me in the psych ward. Said, I was attacking them. And so they put me in a place called Mercy Hospital in Pennsylvania. You know, so and I told the hospital that please, they have to release me because I have an immigration case in New York. And they told my mother's daughter bluntly that, and she lied, I didn't have any immigration case, that I was just imagining stuff. So I had to call my lawyer in New York and call the hospital and told them I really have an immigration case. So the Mercy Hospital apologized to me, and they said no, they didn't understand why the daughters would lie. So the daughter was just trying to get me held up in the psychiatric hospital so I could be ordered deported. You know, so that was one of the things that they did. So and I also have a head injury. So I was trying, my eye started crossing because I had head injury as a child. I had head injury. So I went to a doctor here in New York saying, no, my eye is crossing, like I'm cross-eyed after I had a head injury. So the doctor was like a Russian doctor, and she decided to misdiagnose me that I was delusional, that said under the American Psychiatric Association's, diagnostic tools, that eye crossing could be a sign of delusional disorder. I'm like, I'm not delusional. As I had a head injury, I just want to CAT scan of my brain to make sure the head injury didn't cause injury to my brain because my eyes started crossing. And so she misdiagnosed me as delusional because she was just trying to make money for her practice. She was like a Russian or Eastern European, but she spoke English, so my mother told her daughters that was misdiagnosed. So I think that is exciting her daughters, that that they could just claim I'm mentally ill, and but I now went to another doctor after 2001 when I was misdiagnosed around 2001 and 2000. I went to another doctor here in New York a few years later. It was the neuro-ophthalmologist at the State University of New York on 42nd Street in Manhattan. So he did a test for me, so I was mentally okay. But he did a X-ray of my eye, and he saw that my eye muscle was weak. So he said I have a breakdown of strabismus, which is an eye crossing, it's a muscle dysfunction in my eye. So he gave me eye exercises to do, and he said I'm mentally okay. So he doesn't think I'm mentally ill. So I have a proper diagnosis that I really do have an eye problem causing my eye to cross, not because I'm mentally ill. So that doctor gave me the correct diagnosis. So I'm not mentally ill. I only have weak eye muscles, and he gave me eye exercises to be doing, and said he was going to do surgery, but I didn't have insurance at the time, so I couldn't do surgery. But he told me to keep doing the eye muscle exercises. So the doctor is a neuro-ophthalmologist. So he gave me the proper diagnosis, and I gave the copy of that diagnosis to the Brooklyn Federal Court after I sued the NYPD. So I'm not mentally ill. So they said the governor here in New York said they should be arresting the homeless and put them in psych ward. So there's like an American gang that don't want to help me as a foreigner, because they believe a lot of Americans will go to prison if they help me. So they rather watch me just suffer and suffer. Like a black American lawyer called Saver Cunningham. He graduated from Harvard Law School, was helping me with the case initially, all of a sudden broke contact with me. As my mother was telling me my daughter was poisoning her, I reached out to him again and he wouldn't answer his phone call. And I heard he's now working with the federal prosecutors, the federal lawyers, so they're protecting him, and that is wrong. It could potentially face prison term. And I don't know why the federal government, the federal authorities are protecting him. And my friend Arugana was going to help me. The police killed him. And the federal authorities, they said they forgot to file the case in court. There was supposed to be a federal case against the Arugana killer. And under Trump, they said they forgot to file the case. So the Arugana killer, but they have a state court and they have a federal court. The state court, the prosecutor didn't let me testify in court, so the state charges was dismissed by the court. But they have a federal charges they were supposed to file, and they said they forgot to file it. So they're playing all kinds of games, like they're making fun. They said the Arugana killer, when the killer Arugana was laughing, also he admitted he was laughing when they killed him. So the reason why he was laughing was because he didn't think Arugana died. He thought he was just joking. So he told the paramedic not to do anything to help him to resuscitate him. So they just mock me and mock me also. When I try to use the bathroom, they'll bring the police and they'll tell me the bathroom is closed. And they will start banging on the door. Say, get out! Get out! They will scream and they'll be laughing after they do that to me. And I'll record them laughing, and they'll try to get me to mess up my pants. So it's like they declare war of foreigners, Americans versus foreigners. So all their lawyers wouldn't help me also. Me and my mother used to go for years, go to different lawyers, and they wouldn't help us. So I hope the African soccer players would help me and my mother to post, to tag this, I think they call it tag, the American government on social media, that they should stop the war of foreigners. I was one of their casualties after 9/11. There was mass deporting foreigners. A lot of foreigners that had good cases. But I was able to file an appeal by myself. No lawyer in America would help me. So for years, my case was held up in appeal. And I eventually got my green card. And they actually gave me 2 green cards. My mother held on to one. I held on to one. But my mother's daughters killed her and stole that green card from my mother. So I'm like a victim of human trafficking. Under the laws, international law, when you steal somebody's green card and passport, because one of the things they stole from my mother was my green card, the extra green card the immigration issued me, and they can verify with the immigration 2008. It's under my immigration file. The immigration gave me 2 green cards. Normally they're supposed to give you 1, but they mistakenly issued me 2 green cards. My mother held on to 1, I held on to 1. So when my mother's was a kid in 2015, they took all my green card, my passport I shared with my mother from childhood. They took it to Pennsylvania, and the Nigerian embassy wouldn't issue me a new passport, so I don't have any papers to file for benefits or anything. So I'm just on the street. They don't let me use the bathroom. And they told the Americans to be waging war on me and to treat me like a nobody. So as part of the war, I don't want these African players and these African soccer fans to be mistreated also. So this country is not safe to host the World Cup in 2026. So please, I hope the African players will get involved and help get just for me and my mother and the Black American Arugana that was killed. So Black American guys also punch me. They punch me regularly. My brothers and daughter is part of a gang. So some Black Americans are joining in because some Black Americans don't like Africans. They say Africans sold their ancestors into slavery. So now that it appears the U.S. government is waging a war on foreigners, because I was planning to sue the U.S. immigration. I was planning to sue the U.S. police, NYPD, and Arugana was trying to help me. They choke him dead also. So please, this case has to be brought to light. Even the governor here, I used to contact the office for discrimination. And since then, she said they should be arresting homeless people and putting us in psych ward. So I heard there's a Black American they were trying to put in psych ward, claiming it was crazy. His name is Elijah McClain. And it wasn't crazy. And the police got the paramedic to inject him with a drug called ketamine. And he died of a heart attack. A Canadian movie star called Matthew Perry, they said somebody gave him the drug ketamine, and he used it and he died of a heart attack also. So they said that's the number 1 drug they used to kill, that can be used to kill somebody. So the governor here issued an order that should be grabbing homeless people like me off the street and put us in psych ward. So I wear my jacket all year round because a lot of my phones I've used to record important evidence, I put it in my jacket pocket, and I used the zipper to keep my property safe. So they said that was the way they killed a black American in 2019. They said it was wearing a jacket on a hot day, even though it was a winter November month. But said that day was hot, and somebody called the police on him that he's wearing a winter jacket, and that day was hot. So the police misused their power to arrest him. Said they want to put him in psych ward, and they told him it wasn't going to a psych ward. They told him he had a low blood count, anemia, so he always feels cold all the time. That's why he wears a winter coat all the time. I said the police were forcefully trying to put him in psych ward. As he was resisting, they injected him with a drug, ketamine, which gave him heart attack, and the police further took him down. So I've been talking about that case for many years, and eventually they arrested the police officer and the paramedic that injected them with the ketamine. So they're both in prison right now. So, but nobody would help me for my mother's daughter's killing my mother. So they may try to frame me up as mentally ill because I wear my winter jacket all year round. Because I keep a lot of my old phones in my pocket because I've been recording a lot of evidences, on those phones that will show the pattern of discrimination. Like when the police choked me in 2019, I recorded it on my phone also. So I saved that phone in my jacket pocket. And so they normally send thieves to put their hand in my pocket. So I put a zipper. So this is my storage space. Because anytime they put me in handcuff, they won't allow me to take any of my belongings. They will leave it on the sidewalk for people and the sanitation will come throw it into the garbage dump. So the only thing I'll have on me is my jacket on. That was how I saved my phone when they arrested me in 2019. The only stuff I had in my pocket was the only thing I had. Everything else they stole it. I was in my bag. They didn't let me take my bag in 2019. So they always set up false arrest. So they could take any of this. So I wear my jacket and I use this blanket. I tie it around my body. So in case anybody try to open my zipper, the blanket will offer extra protection. They won't know where my zipper is. So sometimes when I close my eyes, before I open my eyes, they will dip their hand in my pocket, steal my phone. So I put all my phone zip lock it in my pocket. So this is how I go around all year round, saving evidence. So please, my mother's daughters killed my mother. The Nigerian embassy wouldn't help me. And they say if the police kills you, because my case could be worth billions of dollars. Because since 2000, it's now 2024. They've been giving me problem, put me in immigration lockup. So for 24 years worth of torture like that, it could be worth billions of dollars. So I believe, the Nigerian government may be interested also in getting me harmed because they refuse to help me. And they could just delegate somebody, that's compromised, like my mother's daughters, to take over the case and bring some of the money to Nigeria. Because my mother said when she won money in 1980s for her daughters, somebody tricked her to come to Nigeria with the money, and she didn't take the money to Nigeria. She saved it at the bank here it's called the Hamilton Savings Bank, and she went to Nigeria with just $8. As soon as she arrived at the Lagos airport, she said the government immigration thugs came to her and told her that they're aware she has a lot of money on her, that she needs to declare it, that's against the law to arrive in Nigeria with a lot of money. So my mother told her, no, she only brought $8. So the government immigration thugs were so angry, and they went to the person that lured my mother to come to Nigeria with the money. I said, why did you lie to us? They said this woman had a lot of money. And we checked that person, she has $8. And they said they were roughing the person up, and my mother fled the airport in the 1980s. Soon after, the American government banned the Nigerian airport, said they were bringing a lot of Americans and people from America to dupe. So the Lagos said they were trafficking drugs and everything. They were, luring Americans to come to Nigeria with money. I said the Nigerian government was protecting the government thugs. They saw that those people were working for the Nigerian government. So they were stealing the money from Americans and stuff. So they banned the Lagos airport. And I think now the government in Nigeria think, they said they're running out of money, and they believe my case could be worth billions of dollars. So that's why I don't want to help it. I think they want me to die an horrific death. So they can now tell the American government to pay up and take all the money to Nigeria. So I'm a victim of human trafficking, but it's okay. My father God told me, even if I have to fight alone, he said fight alone, go to the court. So you have a good case, don't give up on yourself. So his words is inspiring me. I'm already inspired. I'm a religious person. So I hope your Confederation of African Football would help me. My mother loves soccer. Me and her used to watch it together. Please let the American government knows and all their gangsters that want to fight the world, fight foreigners, instead of allowing these Americans that did wrong to be arrested. Let them know their secret is out in the open. You know. So I hope you, Confederation of African Football, can help me. If you can borrow me money through Western Union. I gave you my phone number at the beginning of my recording. So if you can borrow me money, I'll pay that money back. And also, I just want to note a disclaimer that I'm not married to anybody. I don't want any marriage. I'm not trying to have children with anybody. There's been a lot of scammers that have been harassing me, acting weird, because I heard if they kill you in America, you know, any money you have will go to your spouse. So in case anybody tries to make up any lies, some people will try to bump into me, forcefully, male and female. I'm a transsexual, so I'm not into any secret marriage with anybody. And I hear there's a loophole in the law, that they can claim you're secretly married to them, because since I came into the country in 2000, I've never left America. And the U.S. immigration would verify, because if you leave America, when you come back in with your green card, it will show. They would stamp your passport and notice in your green card, because the U.S. immigration keeps record of it. So in case they try to say I secretly left America and married somebody and came back into the country, the U.S. immigration would know if I left the country. So I don't, because they always, because with my green card, you can't stay out of America for more than 1 year. So they always, otherwise they would erase your green card. So they always monitor whenever you're out of the country. They will note it down whenever. So I never left America. I'm not involved in any secret marriage with anybody. They say, criminals, if you're killed, they could start coming up with all kinds of lies. I've not adopted any child. And also, I don't want any children. In case I'm killed, I don't want my body part to be used to make children. And also, in case I'm killed, I should be criminated immediately. And any money I get that I'm entitled to should be used to get just for me and my mother, and the remainder of the money should be given to charity for those that suffer xenophobia like me and my mother. And also, and another disclaimer is, any money you borrow me can't be used as a basis to sue for unjust enrichment in the future. And also, and also, so this is part of the disclaimer. But so please, I really appreciate humanitarian assistance. From you. I would like to go to school. And get my housing situation fixed. I'm out on the street and they're hiring people to punch me. My brother said her daughters were into insurance fraud, Bolanle and Flora. And, I don't know, it appears after they killed her, they might have won some money from the insurance fraud. And also, the daughter said they didn't want an autopsy done for my mother, because my mother was trying to find out what kind of poison our daughters were poisoning her with. That's why she fled Pennsylvania as soon as she was having symptoms of a heart attack and came to New York. And so, but my daughter said they didn't want the autopsy done, because only an autopsy, if done immediately, can discover the poison. If they wait too long to do the autopsy, they said that poison car fluid leaves the body. So another suspicious thing was our daughters, told the hospital they didn't want an autopsy. I told the hospital I want an autopsy. They said no, they're going to go with our daughters. And before I could get a court order, our daughters snatched my mother's corpse and went and dumped her in a burial ground in New Jersey. And it was very hard for me to get to New Jersey with my belongings, because, a lot of times their buses, they only have buses, they don't have trains. So I won't be able to get on the bus with my belongings and stuff. So they buried my mother behind my back. And my mother was wanting me to stay away from my daughters. That shouldn't have anything to do with them in case anything happens to them. I was recording my mother. A lot of my evidence has been stolen. I kept it in my own storage. And, the Nigerian government promised to help me in 2019. and they didn't help me. In 2020, my storage, Extra Space Storage and American Storage, they sold all my property. Even though there was a COVID shutdown, people weren't supposed to be doing any activity like selling properties or stuff, collecting debts or whatever. They went, the both storages sold all my stuff. So my mother's, the record I had for my mother, I put in my storage, was stolen. And if the Nigerian embassy had helped in 2019 to pay off my storage bills, they wouldn't have sold off all my stuff. I said somebody came and bought all my stuff. So I don't know who that person works for. So they stole all the evidence, but the federal agent has been doing surveillance on me, on other foreigners that had problems with the law, like immigration problems. So everything my mother was telling me as I was recording, the FBI has it in the surveillance. Even Snowden, a former federal agent, said, the FBI and CIA record foreigners, unlawfully all the time. So that, in case anything happens to me, people need to sue to get all my records out. They said even that this Nigerian president, Bola Tinubu, they said he had possibly a criminal record, and they were going to sue to get all his allegedly had a criminal record in the United States for drugs. Allegedly, I'm not sure, but they said they were going to sue to release his records. But I think there's a caveat in the law that only you can sue to get your records released. So I would like my FBI records to be released, but in case I'm killed before then, anybody representing me, which should be an international human rights organization, no family member has the right to represent me in case I'm killed or harmed. Even if they claim I'm crazy, only an international human rights organization that has a long history for fighting for human rights should represent me, and it should take custody of me here in the United States. Even if they claim I'm crazy or whatever, I'm not crazy. I'm wearing a winter jacket quite alright. I know the weather is hotter, but I'm using the zipper, the pocket, to store my stuff because there's a lot of robbery going on. They have Black American gangs that punch me, rob me all the time, and so I want justice for my mother and for myself, So this is what is going on.